thank you for joining us. I know we're 3 days into conference now, so congratulations on having the energy to come along. This session is being held jointly by SME for Labour and Renaissance. My name is Jervis, I direct Renaissance. We're a voter engagement initiative. We call ourselves aiming to connect, or we set up after the 2019 election defeat. We always aim to reconnect Labour with the values, what we call the communitarian mainstream in the country, and around the values of hard work, contribution, reciprocity, strong local communities, and a national government willing to invest in those communities and support working people through fast-paced change. And small business is, or small and medium businesses, we see as a huge part of that in terms of boosting local communities, boosting local growth, boosting local jobs. So that's why we're partnering with SME for Labour today. We've recently launched a report, which is dotted around the room, levelling the playing field. Myself and Hugh, Goulbourne, so we'll talk a little bit on that later. But we're also here to discuss the small business strategy and how the government can hopefully do more to use small and medium businesses as an opportunity to deliver the growth mission, which is obviously so central to everything the government is doing. I'm delighted that we've got Blair, the new Small Business Minister, here today. Congratulations on your appointment, Blair. Really looking forward to hearing from you in a second. We've got Sarah Edwards, who is MP for Tamworth and a member of the Business and Trade Select Committee. Welcome, Sarah. We've got Hugh, who I've already mentioned, has been leading this work for us on small businesses and published this report. And we've got Liz Hind, who has done a variety of different things for the Labour Party, but had the pleasure, shall we say, of trying to run a pub during COVID, which is something that she might want to reflect on in her remarks. So I'm not going to say too much more because you want to hear from the panel. So we're going to go to Blair first. Minister, if you'd like to say a bit on what excites you about the role and the role that small and medium businesses can play in delivering the growth agenda, that would be amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Renaissance and Progressive Vision for the report, and thank you to SME Labour for being utterly relentless in your support of this agenda within the Labour Party. When you deal with anyone from SME Labour, you immediately understand not only why SME Labour is so successful, but why the people behind it are successful business people, because they bring that same enthusiasm to their businesses, I'm sure. It is a labour of love for me to become small business minister. As someone who, like I think 1.3 million other people in the country, ran a micro business for nearly 10 years. Lots of what I'm now doing is deeply cathartic in dealing with some of the problems that I face. So it's a personal honour. It's also a huge responsibility and a huge economic responsibility. We cannot meet the growth ambitions of this government without small businesses. 99.8% of businesses are SMEs, 2/3 almost of employment in that. It's part of the economy. I think £3 trillion worth of turnover. If we're going to make this happen, it's going to happen in the small business space. But for me, it's also an enormous political responsibility as well as an economic responsibility. We are making, as a government, huge structural change across the economy, whether it is the changes to the energy market, the changes to insecure work, unblocking infrastructure, the trade deals we've done. But a lot of that can feel background. And I think where the small business agenda is important is that it brings that to the foreground. It brings that economic change into the places people can see and makes that wider agenda something that's tangible and meaningful. to people, and they see and will see the impact of that in the places where they live. We know that about a third of small businesses are either on the high street or adjacent to it. So this is deeply connected to that sense of place and space. And we know what the experience of people is. It is of crumbling, think of my constituency, crumbling 60s built shopping malls that are owned by people with no connection to the area, alongside beautiful Victorian buildings and shop fronts that are empty. We think of the independent retailers that give character to an area, struggling and being replaced sometimes by bogus businesses that are there for money laundering. We think of the sort of powerlessness and anger that people feel when they're in a shop, going aisle to aisle, trying to make ends meet and to stretch their household budget, and they watch someone shoplifting without consequence, seemingly. Or the cafe owner or the hairdresser who you've got a deep relationship with, who you know is keeping their business going, not even month to month, but week to week, by putting things on their credit cards. And all of those things combine to give people that sense and feeling of insecurity. And I saw this study recently about the link between the rise of reform and empty shop fronts. This is an economic imperative, but it's also a political imperative for us as a party. And I think the fact that it's a urgent priority is spoken of by the fact that we've had the first small business strategy for a decade. We're already seeing urgent action on late payments. We saw the Pride in Place effort in the last few days there. We've seen huge moves to increase the amount of finance available through the interventions of the British Business Bank. The responsibility I have is to make sure that everything that is on the pages of that strategy, which had huge support across SMEs, lifts from the page and goes into the real economy, and that all of that is delivered. But the final thing I'll say is that the strategy isn't the limit of our ambitions. After you just came in, I'm talk about the Maple Review that we're chairing to make sure that entrepreneurship is not something that is only the preserve of the few, but of the many. On our party membership cards, it talks about power, wealth, and opportunity being the hands of the many, not the few. Taking power over your own future into your hands through starting a business. Creating wealth for your family, for your community, and providing opportunity through creating employment. Spreading the benefits of entrepreneurship and small business is a Labour cause. And as Small Business Minister, that's what I want to do.
Brilliant. Thank you, Blair. Thank you very much. Really interesting points there about essentially getting the basics right, security right, tackling shoplifting. Heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's often missed. And of course, the scourge of late payments is obviously a big part of the small business strategies and tackling those late payments. So thank you very much. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you. We've just come from a business roundtable, which invited some of the businesses who've actually contributed to this report, levelling the playing field, which some of you have. And that was also a follow-up to the practical roundtables that we did, and we did the first one together in my constituency in Tamworth, and really making sure that we reflect back the voices of small businesses and the sort of the variety of sectors, the variety of sizes, because I think the challenge can also be that when we talk about SMEs, we've actually got a very wide-ranging, both sector and size of what that means. And I think sometimes that can make it quite hard to figure out what needs they have and how best to support them. So I think that's one of the challenges, certainly, that I'm sure you're picking apart in your work. And I think that's what we heard reflected back was the kind of the sense of how they're position within their communities, how what they do was then sometimes feeling disconnected from the sort of levels of support that previously they'd been able to sort of get access to. So I think there was actually a great welcome of the strategies that the government has set out, because this had been a vacuum before from the previous government. There had not been a driving vision and a driving ambition behind what the government had for small and medium-sized businesses. So I think they were really pleased to have that focus, but they still want to know that that dialogue is still going to continue to happen. And so I think making sure that we're building that confidence is really important, but we only do that by continuing to listen and adapt, because we know that in the current very unstable and very challenging world that we live in, there's going to be all kinds of shocks. And when we were talking to businesses, some of them were saying, you know, we thought COVID was hard, but right now feels like the hardest time that they have ever had in business. Some people are saying, you know, in 20 years that they have been business leaders, they have never known it so difficult. And so I think actually reflecting that back is important, and them feeling heard, and then saying, how then do we get the right types of support? So I think in my role on the Business and Trade Select Committee, we again have gone out for the first time. Many committees, they hear only evidence in Parliament, and we decided that we actually wanted to go out on tour. So that's one of the first things we did, is we travelled the country and we hosted roundtables, and that all fed into the recommendations that we then put forward to government around what businesses were saying and what they needed. And we're doing a number of other inquiries, and we're going to keep doing that, because that's the best way of going out of Parliament, out of the bubble, if you like, to where people are running those businesses, what it's like on the ground, what it feels like, and the actual, you know, just as to what you were saying, that physical reality of what we've seen is the town centres, the high streets, you know, the industrial estates that are not, you know, receiving the investment that they'd needed over the years, and therefore are the distinct visual representation for a lot of people of the success of their country.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. And a huge thanks to Sarah for all the work she's done on this project in Tamworth and in Westminster for us. Some real key points there around the fragmented offering to small businesses and where you go for support. That came across very strongly, and obviously that needs to be heard. I think we felt, Hugh, I want to talk about this a bit more now, but we felt a mixture of frustration that, particularly under the last government, I think the support wasn't there, probably in the early days of this government as well, but also a real optimism that small businesses can play a really important role in driving that growth and prosperity that we need. And with that, Hugh, do you want to say a few words on our report?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, and hopefully you can all hear me. My name is Hugh Goulbourne. I've co-authored the report with Joe and helped lead and look for roundtables in various bits of the country over the last year. I work for a small business. I've spent most of my career working for a small business. I'm a solicitor. I started working in City of London for a large corporate law firm where all of my clients were large businesses, but I became pretty frustrated with that very quickly. I run a small business. We invest in small businesses, community energy projects, and like myself, I think like many people, have also made personal loans to partners and others who need that support, particularly in the last 5 years with COVID and other bits and pieces. So I feel deeply passionate about SMEs for all the reason that the Minister said. In my local area in the North East of England, pride that comes to our area is all because of local shops, local businesses. We've got a thriving high street in Whitby Bay. We've actually got a 1960s shopping estate, but it's probably one of the most thriving ones in the country. Just about every unit is let. Lots of fantastic businesses there, and that's what makes it such a fantastic place to live in, right? Is the fact that we've got such a thriving local sector of businesses. And so I think it's really good that we've got this panel here today, and I would say particular thanks to Sarah. Sarah helped launch our very first roundtable in Tamworth back in December. It feels like a long time ago now, Sarah, although it's less than a year. And as Joe said, we've then had 3 more. Joe hosted one in Port Talbot, and with Steve Pinnock, also hosted one up in my part of Sage. Obviously a multinational business. It started as they told us earlier in the roundtable, as 2 people in the pub. Started as a small business and scaled into multinational. That's part of the journey as well. So they hosted one in the North East, and then we finished them off with one hosted by as Sarah said, we've just come from a roundtable where we've gone through the report with some people who contributed, and if any of you in this room, thanks again for your contributions to the programme as well. We couldn't have done it without you. This report is, for those of you who haven't managed to read it yet, it's really we've tried to capture the voices of SMEs around the country. This isn't me and Joe. This is really capturing their thoughts, their insights, and their recommendations to government. So I really recommend, I know we've met with your predecessor, Blair, and you're very new into the role. I really recommend that you and your officers and your civil servants read it. That was one in. Let me just pick out a number of pieces, because we've got about 30 odd recommendations, so I'm not going to go through them line by line. I think it's, as Joe said, we're into the third day of conference. It'd be a great way for something you all to see. But three areas that I think kind of reflects the overall direction of the reports. First of all, as Joe said, yes, there was frustration, and I think you'll remember, Sarah, it was quite soon after all the NI changes and stuff that we made in Tamworth. So there was frustration in all accountings. But actually, what I think we captured most of it, we got it in the report, was a great sense of optimism from small and medium-sized businesses around the country, and particularly about this new government. I hope that this new government will bring the support that's needed and will put the emphasis on small and medium-sized businesses. In particular, and this is a sort of campaign that we're all running, I think, as progressive societies, to ensure that Labour reflects, is the party of workers, which is obviously quite clear, but workers both employed and self-employed.
Yeah.
That's something I'm really hoping that Blair and his colleagues will start to reflect.
Yeah.
Self-employed, obviously then covering just about every FTE in the country, whether you're directors or freelance, etc. Three areas that I think we then heard strongly. One is access to finance, and when we met with your predecessor there, we got the sense that obviously within the small business strategy there's some recommendations about reforms which we welcome those, but we do believe, and I think we had agreement from your predecessor, that we do need to go further and faster in this. There are many other ways in which small businesses need to be able to access quick finance, it needs to be uncomplicated, things like personal guarantees, we need to think about them, that's
Yep.
really fair on small businesses. So there's a whole raft of things. We've also recommended some tax changes, and we will be making submissions via some of our sister organisations into the Treasury on some of those. In particular, we think the enterprise investment scheme has been really useful for fast growth businesses. I've invested in some of those. But we do wonder whether there's a way to make that kind of tax break available to more small and medium-sized businesses, not just kind of the sort of fast growth businesses. And maybe that would enable that translation or transfer of finance from high net worths into small medium-sized businesses. Then we looked quite a lot, given that we're in different regions, at the strengths of different regions. Obviously, government has an industrial strategy that sits alongside the small business strategy. We've recommended in particular two regions where we think government missed the opportunity a little bit. One is in and around Tamworth, your area in the West Midlands, where we think there is a kind of logistics hub, the golden triangle of logistics, and we think that there is a real opportunity, just because it's not sexy and it's not high growth, and it's not about how we can conquer the world, but there is a growth opportunity there with the government. And there's this thing about pride about large businesses in a place. Similarly, in the northeast of England, we think that northeast corridor, and I'm going to say this because I live there, but we feel that York to Newcastle is a real missed opportunity in terms of we've got 5 fantastic universities already collaborating. There's no reason why York University couldn't join that to make it 6. And also, if you think of all the industry, the agriculture, and other sectors all along that route, there's a real opportunity to grow those, to real focus and investment on that area. And then after that, we could then bring in, that would make the case for improving transport, which is what's really important about that region. I mean, the A1, everyone just has to travel up and down, it's a real nightmare. And then our final area, and this is our biggest recommendation, and I think where we've got quite a lot of campaigning to do, we've been interested to know, Minister, that in the roundtable we just had, was unanimous support for this particular proposal, is that government establish what we call the Business Investment and Growth Unit, BIG, and it's intentionally called BIG because we feel that small and medium-sized businesses are not small, they're big, and we think it's really important that government reflects that in their narrative and their language, and by setting up a unit called the BIG unit, targeted at small and medium-sized businesses, it's straight away all of those businesses, as you said, doing shopping in shopping malls, on high streets. And let's not forget the contractors that come to our houses that do all the fantastic stuff for our house with the fitting borders. These are all small and medium-sized businesses as well. And I know that very well as the way things in our house. So these are all small and medium-sized businesses. They're all vote, and they're all thinking about voting a certain way, I can tell you at the moment. So let's make sure we reflect their concerns by saying you're big, you're not small, just because you're one or two people that go to people's houses. And then they will feel that pride and take that into account as small people go to vote. So that's our biggest recommendation to you. It is already reflected in other countries. The US already has a small business administration, but we do think the language is important as well. How will it be in a sense of social media? So those are our headline recommendations, lots of our recommendations. Keen to hear from you if you want to follow up with any of us. We're continuing this campaign for the next few years, and we really hope that we adopt it. And I should say we met with your predecessor, Blair, and it was great to speak there as well. We do feel Labour's listening. We just need to move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Hugh. Yeah, pride in place, huge theme. Real pride in Talbot as well around manufacturing, real pride in York around food and farming there. So, yeah, that was definitely something that could be really tapped into. Liz, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So, I mean, as you said in your introduction to me, I am Labour. I'm very, very Labour. I've been a member of the party for years, turning up to conference. Lost track of them. Stood for Labour, involved in the Socialist Societies movement. I am Labour because I am a progressive politician who wants to see progressive values in this country. But I am also someone who was running a pub during COVID and trying to engage with the party, trying to get the concerns and problems that we were having on the ground listened to and responded to. So when I sit on a panel like this, and thank you for the opportunity, I do so as someone who, as a person, this is a very personal thing for me, to the point where I can get upset talking about this, because I want us to do well. We all want us to do well, but I have lost count of the many times I've sat and listened to Labour politicians talk about how we are the party for working people, and then talk about employees. Small business owners are ordinary working people. When I was running my pub, I would get up in the morning, go downstairs, clean the toilets, get Stella ready to go, open up the doors, and I was there serving my community, and I would go to bed at midnight, and I would get up and do it again, and I would do that 7 days a week. Apart from the days that I had off to come to Labour Party conference or go down to Westminster, or stand for election. That was difficult trying to run a pub while we were also planning for election. And I think what comes out of this report, and I would absolutely recommend everything that's in it, because I know how hard Hugh and Joe have worked to actually listen to the voices of ordinary working people, to understand that place that they have in their communities, and to understand that there are an awful lot of people out there for whom that pride in how they serve their communities actually then translates into their values, which are progressive values, which are the sorts of values that the Labour Party needs to be going, that's us. That's exactly what we're here to do. Let us help you do that, because we want to support you, because those are our values too. And because there have been struggles in the party to really get to grips with the day-to-day problems that small business owners have, the access to finance, the problems with energy prices, the problems with business rates, trying to get to talk to someone at VLA to dispute your business rates. That takes months of work when you should be up talking to customers and working out what they want and being part of your community. So, some of the ideas that come out of this are brilliant. Things like, the big unit, which would take out that stress of doing the business side that you have to do, and actually let you get on with doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know, all of that, because you don't go into, you know, setting up a pub or running a pub because you want to run a business, because it's an investment opportunity. You do it because that's what you want to do with your life. And you know, by doing some of these things, we take out that stress of running a business, we take out some of the risk of running a business, and we open up the capacity of business owners to do what we want them to do, you know, which is things like regenerate the high street. You know, what is more symbolic of an economy that is not working than, you know, walking to the train station and we've gone past boarded up shops. If we're serious about regenerating the high street, then that comes from the small business sector. It comes from understanding, you know, planning, policies, licensing, which is in the small business strategy. Brilliant. Let's get on with getting that, because that's a real on the ground issue which we will see out there on our streets, in our communities, and literally having a conversation over a pint with a pub landlady that goes leg against me. And that's what we need to be able to see, and that's what I'll carry on turning up to Labour Party conferences to talk about.
Thank you, Liz. And aside from all of your passionate campaigning at conferences like this, all the other work you've done, obviously we really wanted to hear from the point of view of someone who's been through it, lived it day to day, and that's why we're here, right? So thank you very much for that passionate talk about what small businesses face. I could ask a few of my own questions, but it's far more interesting to hear from the audience. So, hands up, lady there. Should we go in threes? Ferdy and lady to the left.
Hi everyone, my name's Laura. I'm here from the Booksellers Association. We represent bookshops across the country, bookstores and independents. Really interesting discussion, and I'm so glad to hear so much talk around high street specifically. It was also really glad to see the small business strategy, a commitment to high streets. The high street rental auctions, I think, are starting to make a difference, and the scrapping of upwards only rent reviews will be welcome. I was just wondering what people's thoughts are, I think, more broadly on landlord related issues. Upward only rent reviews are far from the only problem that our members see with landlords. The number of horror stories that we have to deal with are awful, and it is ending up putting some shops out of business or stopping them from expanding. And it's all very well and good sort of expanding people's rights in the commercial tenancy space, but most of our members don't have the knowledge, expertise or cash to fund any disputes with landlords. What I would really like to see would be some sort of commercial tenancies ombudsman or alternative dispute resolution, so that smaller businesses have a free and simple way of disputing issues with landlords, which could free up all those empty shops and make businesses thrive and less more likely to grow. Just your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm Ferdy from the Road Haulage Association. Firstly, thank you, Joe and Hugh, for shining a light on our sector, and Sarah. I feel like we are quite invisible unless there's a massive lorry driver shortage. We're invisible to government, we're invisible to people, so we do really appreciate it. I have a million questions, but I'll stick with one. Jaguar Land Rover's obviously the best supply chain is built on SMEs, particularly those in my sector, or the sector I represent, sorry. They've also received a large loan from government, taxpayer funded loan. How do we make sure that's conditional so that SMEs, hauliers in places like Tamworth get money, not just Jaguar Land Rover? I've got nothing against Jaguar Land Rover. I just want to make sure that our members who are in their supply chain receive the money that they need to keep going, because they sign exclusivity agreements with them, so their only client is Jaguar Land Rover. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kate Polly from the Finance Innovation Lab. We run the Fair Banking for All campaign, which is a coalition of 35 organisations calling for a Fair Banking Act to open up access to affordable credit for small businesses and for individuals. I was just wondering, back to the point of affordable credit for businesses, what you think the role of mainstream finance is within that. We know went to a bank with a business idea and they just said no, but a CDFI was able to help her, and now she employs 7 people. It's absolutely phenomenal, and we know there's people like that all across the UK who've got that potential to bring growth and opportunity to communities. So would the panel support something like the Fair Banking Act to mandate that relationship between mainstream finance and mainstream finance?
Great, thank you very much, Laura, Ferdy and Kate. 3 very good questions to get started. I think we might go to Liz first on the landlord issue, dispute resolution, because Liz actually wrote an essay for us on this in a precursor to this project. So, and I think other people also, Sarah maybe in particular, have other views on that. So
Yeah, I mean that essay was based on research that I did as a research associate at York Law School. Something that I did to keep myself entertained while my pub was closed. I was interviewing pub tenants, and yes, I mean rent is a big issue. If you are a small business, how much you are paying in rent is a big issue, and I don't think it's one that's being looked at or even tracked properly. So, you know, going in and taking rent on a property, what is the market rent on that property? We just don't know, because who is there that's actually coordinating small businesses and doing the sort of collective representation that is a labour value? Who is doing that for us? There isn't anyone at the moment. Rent, again, what a big labour issue to get involved in, because the sorts of treatment that you get as it's not just domestic, it's commercial as well. So with the work that we're doing with Labour Business, one of the things that we are calling for quite a lot anytime anyone listens to us is to expand the Small Business Commissioner. That Small Business Commissioner needs to be involved in not just thinking about late payments. There are a whole load of other issues where we need that sort of information gathering and collective representation of an issue. Because Horizon scandal, that's another scandal we've not learnt anything from. People went to prison because there was nobody that they could tell. That there was nobody collecting that information and seeing that pattern there. So there's lots of things that we need to learn from, and having that central organisation that's coordinating small businesses is something that I think we need to see.
thank you very much, Liz. Sarah, did you want to come in on obviously energy kind of connected to this, isn't it? Did you want to say a few words on that side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got a bit angry about a year ago because one of my businesses ended up in a dispute with their very large energy supplier, nearly put them out of business, basically demanding £10,000 sort of within 7 days, or we're going to take you to court. And you can go and find out more about that. I've talked very publicly about it, and it got me angry, and so I decided to start sort of down the rabbit hole of what is commercial energy and the experience that particularly small businesses have in hospitality. Half of them, most of them, can't even get energy. I've got a report that I'll be sending in to the Business and Trade Committee. I met with Admiral Pubs the other day. They showed me every single supplier who had declined to provide energy. So I'm not even talking about the astronomical, ridiculous cost. I'm even talking about the access to power your business.
Yeah.
It's an absolute scandal what is happening, and the complete lack of regulation, the lack of Ofgem doing their role in regulating suppliers. They have license conditions. I really think that every time you speak to a business, it's your second biggest cost after staffing. And it is making us uncompetitive when we talk about how we have to compete globally. We're talking about the challenges in all manner of things that are on a bill, but also the fact that there's profiteering going on at an unbelievable rate. There's probably 20-30% we could be shaving off bills purely in removing the vulturism, the vampirism that is going on, and particularly where we've got completely unregulated third-party intermediaries where the good ones can't properly compete, and the incentives from suppliers as well to sell particular products that don't meet the needs of the customer is it's a massive scandal. and we need, and you know, we've got to expose it, we've got to get underneath it. So I've been sort of campaigning on that and bringing together trade organisations and those who want to sort of disrupt this, challenge it, and also hosted a debate on it and met with your predecessor, so I'll be absolutely bringing you up to speed on this, on the needs of, this doesn't cost the government anything. This is something that we can do, and we need to do it because we're behind the curve. You know, people have been talking about this for over a decade, and we could be getting to grips with it, saving that money out of bills, and that can be going back into businesses, that can go back into the economy, that can help people to employ and to invest. And so I think where it's not going to cost us anything, we need to crack on and send a really positive message to people that actually, yes, there are big issues, yes, there are challenges, but we can deal with that part of the bill, and then the longer term, the fantastic work the government's doing on making sure we've got clean power and energy security, that will help in the long run. But right now, businesses are struggling, and we need to send that really strong message that where we can, we will, and that there is going to be that positive change. So I'm crusading on that.
Yeah, it's a campaign that's only going to grow and grow, I think, and I'm sure lots of people in this room will want to get behind it. Minister, did you want to pick up on that point, or perhaps Jaguar Land Rover, or I know there's a financial inclusion strategy coming up as well, isn't there? So
yes. Lots to unpack there. So on the landlord point, I agree with what's been said, but to add something else into the mix, which is on energy costs, with so many businesses operating in rented properties, you then end up with a situation where the business has to pay the bill, but are not able to do any of the investment which would reduce the bills, and that is just a huge disconnect at the centre of our effort to get businesses to be in a more sustainable footing in the environmental sense of sustainable, but financially sustainable as well. And we need to find a way to crack that relationship as we look at that. On Jaguar Land Rover and the supply chain, obviously the whole point of everything we've been doing is exactly about, that's what's been driving it, is the supply chains. And so there'd certainly be an expectation from government that will trickle all the way through the supply chain. And obviously the good news about them beginning to get things back up and running. Someone grabbed me earlier at one of the problem with being small business minister is every meeting I go to, someone gives me something which will cause me sleepless nights. And at the last meeting, it was someone talking about, if you look at how cyber attacks have been so damaging for companies like Jaguar Land Rover and Marks and Spencer's, the extent to which small businesses are exposed to that, where you're not going to be in the front page of the news. You're not going to get an assistance package. You're just going to have to deal with it. I've been sent back into my department with a to-do list on that. And then on finance, so I met with finance industry people last night on this, and there's an enormous problem there where pre-financial crisis, 90% of small businesses going for finance got an approval. That dropped after COVID to 60%, and it's now sitting at 50%. So there's an enormous problem with supply. We are obviously, through interventions with the British Business Bank and others, trying to deal with that. The frustration for the banks is they are saying we would dearly love to lend more, because obviously that's their business. They want more customers. They want to do more business as well. So we need to crack that nut. The other point to make, which is sometimes a slightly unpopular point to make when we're talking about access to finance, is it's not just a supply problem, it's a demand problem. I forget, I think it was a British Business Bank survey, but forgive me if it was someone else's research. 3/4 of British small businesses surveyed said they would rather have slower growth than faster growth that was underpinned by debt. So this is a conscious risk aversion as well as a cultural risk aversion. And until we deal with that, until we have a business environment where people are more willing to take those risks, there'll be a limit to what we can do, even as we do increase access to finance.
Thanks very much, Minister. Sarah, very quickly, so I think we're going to another round of questions. Do you just want to come back?
Yeah,
on
no,
finance?
just on that point, because we as a Business and Trade Committee are running a inquiry into access to finance. So again, please do submit in your findings, your thoughts and your suggestions, because we'll be producing a report and launching that later, and we'll be hearing more evidence, because we've already heard bits and pieces, but compiling that together. And anybody else who's likewise has examples of challenges, because one of my businesses was asked to put their house up, to support that. And they're actually had fantastic support from the department and the export finance. They have utilised that and gone from strength to strength. So there are really good news stories as well. But that was one example that they said was just absolutely absurd, to have to potentially lose your house when you employ people and you're taking a degree of risk that just feels disproportionate.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. I think we've got time for 3 quick-fire questions or comments. Lady at the front here had a hand up the first time round. Gentleman there. And we'll try and get 2 more in. 3, 4 there as well if we can. But if we keep them really, really short, that'd be amazing.
Thank you. So Laura from Zero Small Business Platform works with 1 in 5 UK small businesses. So firstly, Liz, thank you for everything you shared and how authentic and passionate you were. My question is, let's get practical. There's not much time to implement these changes that the small businesses desperately need. What's the one thing the panel would do to recommend to Blair that we need to do quickly so small businesses feel the difference and can continue to make the difference for their communities? I think I know energy might be your answer, Sarah.
That'll be a good one to end on, I think, when we do final remarks.
Come back to that one.
Yeah.
Hello, James from Competitives UK. It's really great to hear the intention to have that synergy between SME policy, communities policy, and private place.
Yeah.
What are the real opportunities to make sure that we do join those dots? Because often, different policy, different departments doesn't always talk together even when it looks like it should. And just from a quantitative point of view, I think the call for evidence that people will be coming out to the Department for Business is one of those opportunities, I think, to really join those dots. Do we know when it's going to come?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brendan Moore from the East Brewers Cooperative, and I believe that we already have all the laws and discounts we need from the government to make successful business and start successful business. We seem to have ignored the community cooperative and community benefits act, which allows you to be able to set up businesses that have don't rely credit in them. The community and business community benefit act, cooperative community benefit act, it's like halfway house between contract law and association that allows businesses themselves, not being directed by government, to organise a supply chain that is credit free and doesn't have any threat. We already get we don't have to pay VAT, we have earned over 85,000. That already tells us how much, if we want to make £30,000 out of our business and we need to do that, we know what margins we have to set before we go into that breakdown of the thing. That's already there for you. You don't have to plan for it, you don't have to pay that until you're making extra money. So you plan your business like that at the start. It doesn't need any credit to start it, it doesn't need long thing. And the consumer is already paying in advance. It buys online, it buys the goods, it pays for them before they're even sent from China. We've got the base of the money, where the money comes into all business, coming from the consumer. The consumer is already programmed from COVID and from buying online to pay, and he pays before you even make the goods in China.
Yeah.
And send them over here. And they can do that for our business here too. They will pay first. They already pay in the pub. You get your pint and you pay.
Yeah.
In Witherspoons, they don't start serving you until it's gone through, and then they go and get your pint. So the whole thing is set out for that to happen. We're businesses, we can organise our supply chains the same way. No use asking for companies to pay us if we don't then pay our suppliers.
Thanks very much. Cheers. And gentlemen,
thank you, David Tozer, NCC, part of the Hard Manufacturing Passport. Just interested and also reflection on the innovation ecosystem, specifically the role that Innovate UK
to answer the last question. So, is there anything you want to go back on very quickly to make sure I'm very well?
Yeah, no, happy to. I know we're short time, so I'm just going to answer that question, a very good question about what one thing, because I think it ties in all of these points. I mean, I'm passionate about the big unit because exactly as the Minister's outlined, you've got so many things on the audit table as a political representative. I think the only real way you're going to do this is to have a unit that systemically works in all of them and can do the cost-cutting piece as well. And if I bring together the finance point, the rental point, the energy point, I think those all show exactly why you need a unit to do that. And my analogy would be, when I see Sarah, I think she's done fantastic work on this. She represents the kind of MP that Bobby Kennedy was in the US when he was first in the Senate, a campaigning senator who went after the kind of barons and the tribute barons and stuff relentlessly. And that's what I think this unit would be. So when it's rental, it would go relentlessly after it, make sure that any loopholes that tie together, you fix this imbalance between big business, which is what Liz is talking about, and small businesses. Same on finance, because frankly the problem with finance is the banks will tell you we don't want to lend. Well, the reason why they're not lending is because it's so easy to make money if you're a bank. And some of that's linked to HMRC rules going back to the financial crisis, which just means literally they can lodge loads of money with the government and make returns that mean they don't have to lend to banks. So and unless you have somebody relentlessly working away at that and working with the British Business Bank and actually saying to them, because the British Business Bank says this to us, they say, hey, we're doing a great job, and the reason why we're not lending is because there's not enough demand. Yep. But it's your job to create that demand, so you go out and create it, is what I would say. And again, if you had a big unit, they could be people constantly tapping them on the shoulder and saying, why do you not do more? You should be doing more this week. And I think that that's where you fix it. And the same with energy companies. And I work in the energy sector, so I hear everything that Sarah's saying on that. Final thing I'll just say is on the co-op thing. We haven't featured co-ops massively in here, but that's because I think to some extent we feel within the Labour Party the co-ops movement has a fantastic lobby of its own. That's not to discredit the fact that co-ops are great examples of massively useful for our folks.
Absolutely, here. Minister, do you want to come back on Innovate UK, the ecosystem question, or indeed anything else you wanted to?
Yeah. Several things there. Joining the dots. It's a perennial problem in government. I think what helps in this moment is there is a sense of urgency towards the need to deliver. So the politics sort of drives the speed at the moment. And myself, Dan at Treasury, Miata Communities, we have very overlapping roles on this and determined to work together. In terms of cooperatives, we've got the commitment to double that sector. As you say, that's something that's always very well served within the labour movement. But if we can do that, we know the growth impact of those businesses is outsized, and so it's a shortcut to getting to where we want to get to. On innovation, I mean, the thing that we were discussing this earlier on, Laura, the thing that's running through everything in my mind is how accessible is that to the companies in terms of government support for that might not access it otherwise. Yeah, the companies that most need our help sometimes are the last dog to the bowl when it comes to this stuff. So in terms of the design of support in that space, making sure that people can reach it.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Sarah, do you want to do the point as well about, I think we're going to go to each person on one thing that wants to be done for small businesses.
Sure, I can do that. I just wanted to sort of speak to the innovation. You said manufacturing, you mentioned, I think, did I hear you? Got you. Okay, yeah. So just came from a round table where we had a very brief discussion. I mean, and if we speak to the JLR situation that you mentioned, I mean, we've got a problem, I think, and they want that reassurance, don't they, of how the money that JLR has been given is going to get where it needs to go. I think we still have a question to answer around that, particularly because when I've spoken to the suppliers who are tier 2, 3, 4, materials providers as well, they don't have the relationship with JLR. So how does the money get there? So I think there's a real sense of concern. So fantastic that the package is there, but there's still a few questions. But it's stopping people from wanting to innovate or to specialise in the area, because the boom and bust cycles of the manufacturing for automotive is scaring people off. So we've also got the fact that they diversify so that you're protected. Then it was specialised so that you. So I think that's a challenge. I think there's a challenge there in how we keep the innovation going. But equally, we're going to build 1.5 million homes. And yesterday I sat on a panel talking about modern methods of construction. In this country, we don't have enough people to lay the bricks. We've got to start to think about the other alternatives for building houses. And we can do it much quicker than laying bricks, quite frankly. But we need to send that demand signal. We need to show that the innovation will pay off. Otherwise, no one's going to bother, because you've got to invest. And if you're not going to get that back, why would you bother developing a new SIPS panel system? You're just not going to. And then the one thing, absolutely, it's going to be energy, because it doesn't cost the government anything. We need to tie that up together. It sends a really positive message that says, we get it. We know that the sharks phone you up 6 times a day. One of my businesses gets phoned by some random from overseas to try and lock them into these dodgy contracts. We've got, the daily charge that's gone from COVID being 20p a pound. Sometimes now it's £50 a day, because they basically shifted all the risk onto the businesses. So it's just sharks, and we need to go fishing.
Great, thank you very much. We've got about 30 seconds. Liz, any final remarks and one policy?
One thing that Labour needs to do is get involved, and that's purely get involved. It's a key plank of Labour. We know how to do it, so do it with ordinary working people who just happen to run businesses.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Hugh?
Start a big unit, bring HMRC, bring all those things, HMRC, Information Commissioner's Office, Companies House, to one portal, so all I have to do is register once, and it's all done, and all the reminders come through, and I don't get fined because I've missed it just as I've forgotten about it. It'll also help you tackle fraud much more easily.
Thank you, Hugh. And Minister, final word. If you've got one priority, well, you've got 1,000 priorities.
I have more than 1,000. But if they're all priorities, none of them are. Personal for me is around late payments. I was speaking yesterday about the Christmas where I was owed £65,000 from suppliers and wondering whether I would be able to pay my kids Christmas presents. I think that is about fairness, but it's also links to the question about access to finance. Companies are carrying huge amounts that should be invested because they have no confidence they're going to get paid in time.
Yeah.
And I think that's got the potential to be transformative.
Brilliant. Thank you, Minister, for your time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to the SME Labour Pod.
Yes.